Hi, I'm Lee Iridium. Hope everyone's doing all right today. It's album review time. Before I do that though, I just want to say a huge thank you to the band The Brave. Melodic hard rock band sent me this brilliant t-shirt. It's their new album that came out last year, Evie's Little Garden. Thank you very much, The Brave, for sending me this. Really do appreciate anything I get. Just fantastic that bands send me things like this. So thank you very much for that. So we are talking about a big album now. So I've been looking forward to this album for quite a while now. Well, as soon as they said they was going to release this album, Scorpions fans are getting really excited about this album. There's comments under loads of my videos about Scorpions whenever I react to the song off of this album. There's a lot of love for this band, and so there should be. So Scorpions Rock Believer is the album. Came out today, the 25th of February. It's the 19th studio album by this amazing band. 16 tracks are on this album, and I don't know if it's on every release, but on the version I listen to, 16 tracks, the deluxe version if you like. Is that too much? That's the first question. I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because, one, the quality of this album and the songs on it. You know, when you're talking a lot of albums that come out with that many tracks, you're going to be talking a lot of filler. I honestly can say that I liked everything about this album and loved an awful lot about it as well. So obviously there's some songs that are my favourites, but there was not one song I thought was filler on this album. I absolutely loved listening to this album, and it flew by. Not like there were 16 tracks. And usually I would say 16 tracks is too much. Depends on the quality, and what you get here is real quality. And also the main reason I think that 16 tracks is not too much. This band have been going a long time, obviously since the 70s. How many more albums are we going to get out of Scorpions? Who knows? Hopefully there'll be more. There might not be more. So 16 tracks. It's worth having those 16 tracks, you know, because I want as much music as possible out of Scorpions. I really do, especially on this level of greatness that they've come up with on this album. So does it stand up to what I was expecting and to what the fans were expecting? In my point of view, it exceeds my expectations. I thought to myself, 16 tracks, there could be a lot of filler there. There definitely isn't. It does sort of feel like it spans their whole career. There's moments on this album, I would say definitely, you know, from the 70s of their career, then definitely the 80s for sure, definitely that 90s and 2000s period, you know, and the more recent albums, which were quite a while ago now, but definitely, you know, there's a bit from everything from their career, and I think that's what they were going for, especially the earlier stuff. So I'm glad to say my favourite period of the Scorpions was Love Drive, probably up to Savage Amusement. That was the part for me where I thought the Scorpions, in my opinion, were at their best. Obviously a lot of people are fans of the 70s stuff, or you're sort of fans of the 80s stuff. Mine was the 80s, but it's probably where I was growing up during that period, you know, and they were one of my main bands, and I'm glad to say that this album has really captured a lot of that feel that I had in those 80s periods, brought back a lot of nostalgic feelings for me. So that's absolutely brilliant. And the funny thing is as well, normally when I do an album, and I do reviews all the time, as you guys know, I usually say that, you know, this song sounds like this band, or, you know, influences. You can't say Scorpions sound like anyone, because so many bands take influence from them. They're the pioneers of a lot of the, you know, the music they make. People mimic them, or they sort of have riffs that sound like them. No one quite sounds like the Scorpions though, do they? They really don't. So in the band at the moment, so obviously Klaus Meine is the vocalist. Man, I honestly haven't heard him sound this good for quite a while. I mean, he's never had a bad voice. He's always had a really good vocal, but he really sounds strong on this. Some of the strongest vocal that I've heard for a long time from Klaus Meine, and he has just got that voice that is just distinctive. You know, it doesn't matter what Scorpion song comes on in my car. If my missus is with me, she says that's Scorpions. She knows straight away because he's got the most distinctive voice, maybe in rock, heavy rock altogether. He could literally have the most distinctive voice, and it's brilliant at the same time. Of course, you've got the two guitarists, Rudolf Schenker, Matthias Jabs. Just love the fact that they're still with the band. They're both there. Obviously, Rudolf was there from the beginning. I think Matthias joined Love Drive, I think, or Animal Magnetism. I think he might have joined in just through that period, what I can remember. But I love both guitarists. They gel so well together. Matthias does some great soloing on this album. And it was like when the first single came out of this album, I was sort of concerned a little bit that there wasn't enough lead playing during the verses. I wanted him to lead off like he used to in the 80s. But I'm happy to say that there's a lot of that on this album. He is a brilliant guitarist. Rudolf is brilliant as well. Actually love their guitaring. You've got Paul Makiwoda, I think that's how you pronounce it, probably completely wrong, on the bass. Mickey D on the drums. These guys are just professionals. You know, they are so tight. I love everything about the sound of this album. The bass is ramped right up. The drums sound fantastic. The rhythm section is so tight. And you know, you need that. If you've got to play for the Scorpions, you've got to be the best. It's just simple as that. And they do a brilliant job on this album. So yeah, you guessed it. I love this album. Now, I usually just talk about my favourite tracks. And usually with an album with 16 tracks, I would definitely sift through my favourites and leave some off. I'm not going to do that. I love everything about this album. There is a strong, you know, section of this album. I think the middle section is the strongest part of this album. But everything from the beginning to the end, I love. And you know what? The weakest Scorpion song could be another band's best song. They're that good. So going from track 1, the opening track, Gas in the Tank. Love this song. It's a great up-tempo rocker to start the album off. The guitars chug. There's riffs everywhere all over this rocking track. A huge chorus. You're going to hear me saying huge chorus so much as you would expect. And an excellent, amazing technical solo. They're back and they sound better than ever. Next up, you've got Roots in My Boots. So the up-tempo start continues with another rocker. This is a bit faster than the opening track. Klaus' vocal sounds brilliant here. He's sort of singing over some hung-out riffs in the verses. And the chorus, again, is infectious. Well, even when you say Roots in My Boots, that's catchy, isn't it? Well, that's how it is on the song as well. Knock 'em Dead is the next track. Another great track. They really sort of have a great rock and roll groove in this medium-paced hard rock track. It's a real fun track, you know, it has a real upbeat sort of feel to it that is just brilliant. Loving the solos throughout the verses. This is what I said about Matthias. I don't know if it's Matthias or Rudolf, but they're sort of, you know, soloing off and doing little fiddly bits in between. Just not the solos over the verses as well, which is just fantastic. Something I hope for, like I said at the beginning. Next track I want to talk about is Rock Believer, and we get a few singles in a row now. So Rock Believer is just, I love this track. It's the title track, obviously. It's the third single, I think it was. It's outstanding. Cowbell is used in this, which is just classic. And, you know, at the beginning and throughout the track, it has No One Like You type guitar melodies, the acoustic guitar and Klaus's voice. I mean, I have mentioned this on nearly every blimmin' reaction that I do, but Scorpions transport me. And I've said this before, either they transport me to how, you know, remembering when I was a kid growing up listening to them, they transport me to feel like I'm listening in a different country, a different time. One of the few bands that do this to me. And there's many times on this album I feel this way. And Rock Believer is one of those. An outstanding title track. Next up is maybe still my favourite song on the album, and I just spoke about giving me those transporting in time feels. This one's got to do it and all, Shining of Your Soul. Love is a meaning, true love and Man, probably my favourite on the album, like I said. Definitely my favourite of the 5 singles so far. Is there anybody there, sort of reggae beat vibes going on in this one? Off Love Drive, obviously. Klaus is outstanding here. This really gives me sort of late 70s, early 80s Scorpions vibes for sure. Absolutely love this track. Next up is the other single, Seventh Son. This gives me vibes again of the Zoo, Animal Magnetism as well. The track Animal Magnetism, China White, especially that beat, the brilliant slow to medium pace stomp. It's clear at this stage that the band have done exactly what they set out to do, because they was talking, I believe, in interviews about they wanted to, you know, get back to, you know, that give you that sound that they used to have maybe in the late 70s, early 80s. And they definitely do that. They've definitely conquered that without a doubt. And they sort of touch upon their brilliant history throughout the album, and this one does the same. It's just brilliant. Next up is a track called Hot and Cold. The band really hit you heavy this time with a great riff to start off. The bass rumbling in the mix. Like I said, it's a great mix on here. It's perfect. A fun, catchy chorus, again, as you would expect. There's a pattern here, isn't there, about catchy choruses. I did say that I was going to say it a lot, but there you go. Next up is When I Lay My Bones to Rest. Now, fast rock and roll song this time. Probably a style of track. You know, if it was another band, it's the style of track I wouldn't really go for. But this is Scorpions. So there you go. Everything they do just exceeds 99% of other bands. Absolutely brilliant. Next up is the first single, Peacemaker. Peacemaker, Peacemaker, bury the undertaker. Another chugging up-tempo track, a bit faster this time, which I thought would actually be the opening track. I think I mentioned that when I first heard it. It does sound like an opening track when I first heard it. It's a straightforward but really effective chorus. I really liked this when it came out. I love it now. Next up is Call of the Wild. The pace is sort of slowed down here. It's really interesting, this song. It's sort of slow to medium pace, but the heaviness is ramped up because of the pacing of the song. Some really heavy riffing that's sort of gapping in those verses and a little bit of a psychedelic type chorus. I absolutely love this track. It's one of my favourites. Next up is When You Know Where You Come From. When you know where you come from, you know where you're going. So this is the latest single that's been brought out on release day. So is there anyone that sort of writes a better ballad than Scorpions? I think the answer's got to be no. So I've spoken about the band, the way they make me feel, nostalgia, transporting me and to different times, places, and the Scorpions ballad does that to me every single time. The pacing of this song sort of gives me a little bit of When the Smoke Is Going Down feels a little bit. A brilliant ballad to add to the band's already excellent repertoire of excellent ballads. Next track I want to talk about is Shoot for Your Heart. Now this is a rocker, medium to fast pace. Probably not the best track on offer on the album for sure, but still better than most bands' best tracks. It's Scorpions. Does have a really catchy chorus though, just like the rest of the album does. When Tomorrow Comes is the next track. This is a medium pace song, a darker, heavier track that sort of gives me those late 70s feels again. Some great sort of slightly Eastern type vocal melody from Klaus. Klaus is sort of talking in the verses in this one. I love the feel of it. It's different than the rest of the material that we've heard already. Great song. Next up is Unleash the Beast. Klaus does some speaking again on this track, as the last one in the verses, same as that. A great melodic chorus gives me a totally different feel from those verses though. It's a great mixture within the song. Next up is Crossing Borders, another rock and roll vibe here to this one. And when they do this rock and roll type vibe, they have so much groove, Scorpions do. It's a real fun track again. And then we finish on When You Know Where You Come From, acoustic version. It does what it says on the tin, Klaus sounds amazing. His acoustic guitar, it's a great song. So this album, man, with Scorpions, sometimes in the past, maybe from Crazy World for me onwards, a bit hit and miss. I would say this is, for me, the strongest album probably since Savage Amusement. That's my feel on it. I love Savage Amusement, by the way. I think this one and Humanity Hour 1 was probably the best stuff in the recent modern type Scorpions albums. This is really, really, really strong, guys. I really recommend this. Scorpions are fantastic. Everyone in the band sounds like they're on fire. I'm really hoping for more albums, to tell you the truth. I absolutely love Scorpions. One of my favourite bands ever. Are you going to get this album? Have you heard it yet? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.